Good morning, good afternoon. We're coming back to you with day 2 of the ETS World Championships. So we had a long day of Eternal yesterday. We had the first 9 rounds of the round robin, where every single one of the 16 players plays off against every other one of the 16 players that are at Worlds, and we are finishing up the round robin today. We have 6 more rounds of round robin, and the top 4 players from that round robin will be advancing directly to the final day, day 4, which is a double elimination bracket. And then we are having our first 3 eliminations today. The bottom 4 players from this round robin will play in a 4-player single elimination bracket. So then on day 3, the remaining 9 players who have not directly gone to day 4 and have not been eliminated will play off in another round robin. The top 4 of those 9 players will advance to day 4, which is again the 8-player double elimination bracket. Every player that makes it to day 4 is guaranteed to be in the cash. The prize pool total is $3,000. First place gets $1,000. Second gets $750. Third gets $500. Fourth gets $250. Fifth and sixth get $150. And seventh, eighth get $100. So top 8 guaranteed at least $100, playing for up to $1,000 if they can win the entire tournament. And more details about the format of the tournament can be found on aReNGeeternal.com/ETS. And the bracket can be found on Challenge. That is the bracket for the first portion of the event. We'll be making a bracket for the other portions of the event as we start doing those portions of the event. So, the quick results from yesterday. We have Sunnyvale in first place, although he's actually tied with Camato in terms of tiebreakers, as they have both won the head-to-head with Tobo, but Sunnyvale and Camato have yet to play each other. So, Sunnyvale 7-2, Camato 7-2, Tobo just barely behind by kind of a technicality at 7-2 as well. Then fourth place at the moment, the sole person at 6-3 is Sir Rhino. And then we have the 5-4 portion of the bracket. Visarius, Lights Out Ace, Unearthly, AngryChicken, and Child Roland all at 5-4. Toth, Ilya K, Kempf Crowed all at 4-5. And then we have the people who are at the moment poised to have to play through a single elimination bracket at the end of today. Loco Pojo and Hythar at 3-6, Love Up at 2-7, and Moosh, unfortunately, at a 0-9 record after day 1. And so, joining me today on the analysis desk for this pre-show are aReNGee himself and ExKirby.
Hello, Internet. It is me, your ExKirby. Sorry, I just had to get that out there.
Yeah, I didn't make it back for day 2 of casting, but they brought me back on for the analysis desk as a sort of golden parachute opportunity.
Yeah, Neon did so well on the analysis desk yesterday that he will be casting today. aReNGee didn't quite make the cut. So, real quick, let's talk about the teams and how they've performed on day 1. So, we can see real quick that Team ET is so far the team that has done the best. When you look at just results from day 1. And they're also the team that's brought a team deck, although not every player on the team is on the team deck. Tobo Sarius, and Moosh are all on TJP Midrange with approximately like an 85 card common pool between them. The players have made some amount of small tweaks and tech choices. One or two card in the main 75, one or two card in the sideboards here and there. We see Tobo doing very well with the deck. Sarius has posted a slightly above 50% record at 5-4, and Moosh, again, unfortunately, is at 0-9. But then we see Team O&D. They've managed to exactly even. All four of their players are kind of hovering in the middle portion of the bracket. So, today they will show, if they can pull themselves up toward the top, all of them are still live to go directly to day 4. They have to kind of run the table for the players at 4-5. They'd have to, basically have to run the table at this point. Unearthly and AngryChicken, in theory, have a game to give up if they want to make top 4 directly.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have Team SPG not quite doing so hot, which I think is kind of a bit of an upset in terms of Hythar's performance.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of... Sorry, go ahead, aReNGee.
Well, Hythar went 3-3, which, that's about average, sort of O&D level performance, and then dropped his last 3 matches on day 1. So went into the break at 3-6, which is not really where you want to be. If he can recenter himself and find some good matchups, Hythar is definitely a player that's capable of throwing off 4 or 5 wins that'll get him back into the middle of the bracket and out of those bottom corners. But right now, I believe he's actually in the bottom 4 and ripe for elimination. So he's going to need some help to get out there. And overall, SPG didn't have any really dominating performances. Child Roland started off really well. I think he was he was 3-1 after 4 rounds, but then it didn't really develop into sort of a commanding lead. And Confcroat, again, these sort of aggro decks sometimes can be effective, but depending on the bracket portion and how much aggro hate there's going to be, it's going to be easier or better. I know Conf was not successful in beating some of his aggro mirrors that he faced on day 1, so he may have more luck against some of the higher end on day 2.
Mm-hmm. And then we have, the Team aReNGee Eternal, which is to say not actually a team, although Rhino and Ace tested together, and they are the casters that have unretired for the moment to see how well they can do in Worlds.
Did Delaware actually retire? I just don't think he played in the first place.
Well, technicalities.
Yeah, retired in spirit. So Sir Rhino has the reverse of the Hythar story. He actually, Rhino and Pojo both dropped their first 3 matches to go down 0-3, and I think Ace was something like 1-3 after 4.
He was 2-2.
Okay, that's a little better. But yeah, Sir Rhino fought back from 0-3 with 6 straight wins in a row to end the day 6-3. So that's pretty good.
That's a rally
after 3 straight losses. Pojo managed a 3-3 record, which again not great, but Pojo, good player. Should be able to bounce back. Strong mental game. You need to have a good mental once you go down early, and these players have shown some good fortitude there. I want to talk about ET a little bit with the team deck. I was very surprised when Tabo didn't bring his trademark Chalice that he'd been doing so well with at the wild card when he won, and he had at the Invitational and stuff. And I thought it'd be very well positioned, but decided to bring the team deck instead, and it seems to be working out for him. So that's good to see there.
The problem I have with the team deck, though, is that it appears to be rather high variance, and in a 15-match round robin, I don't know if variance is the thing you want. I don't necessarily agree with the pickup, but I will have to consider it does appear to be working out rather well for at least Tobo.
Well, there's a lot of different strategies you can employ in these kinds of events. You can look for something consistent, assume that you're going to be good enough as a player. You can look for something that's a little bit less consistent but has a better chance of spiking the event. And depending on your perspective, they've done one of those 2 things. So at the moment, they're on the side where it's doing quite well. But as we saw with Sarius, the majority of his losses were towards the end of the day, even though he started off quite strong.
Yeah, sorry, it started off 4-0 after the first 4 rounds.
And then I think he was 5-1 after 6. Sounds right. Yeah.
Mm.
So definitely something that can quickly go downhill. But overall, I think its win rate is just about average on the day for TJP.
Yeah, that mathematically makes sense.
But only 4 players are on it. It's any player's individual performance is going to skew deck numbers one way or the other when there's these few players in the field.
Yeah, I will say, purely on a team perspective, Eternal Titans are bloody dominating. Like, they've got the top 3 positions basically to themselves.
Yeah.
They have a very good chance of getting at least 2 into the top 4.
And I will say, when you look at TJP Midrange's overall win rate, including all 4 players, because Love Up is not included on this chart, he's teamless. TJP Midrange is actually hovering at a 35% win rate.
Mm-hmm.
The win rates for decks are basically the player's individual win rate, except for TJP Midrange, Xenon Control, which is hovering at 61%, and Burn Queen, which is also at 61%. Burn Queen we are considering as Comp's deck and Sunny's deck, and then Ilya's deck is kind of a slightly separate deck, although they're really kind of 3 different portions on a spectrum. Where you could just about as easily classify, gather Sunny with Ilya or Sunny with Kampf. Kampf is the high-end burn, 1.5 billion drops, Obliterate, and Soulfire Drake. Ilya is all the way down at the bottom with 21 drops and Rally. Sunny's at 14 1-drops, but he still has Obliterate, but he doesn't have Rally. But
So what I'm hearing is Rally Queen, Burn Queen, and Big Burn. Easy. Go next.
I don't think we actually have a field chart, but since there's only 16 players, the 4 TJP decks make up 25% of the field, and then those decks that you just talked about are another 5, and then everything else is its own individual deck. So 7.
Yeah, because the vast majority of the field was one-offs. I didn't really do a deep analysis of decks as what portion of the metagame they were, because it's basically just TJP midrange is 25%, and then everything else is what it is.
and it's also in a round robin tournament, the metagame percentages don't really matter in terms of bracketing, because it's not like, there's a whole lot of these decks I expect to run into them, because you're going to have to face everything eventually. So every deck that was brought is something that your deck is going to have to be able to beat at some point down the road,
right?
Because you're going to run into everybody.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you don't have to beat Chalice, because no one brought Chalice.
Thank God.
So let's real quick take a look at the fan vote and then the aReNGee Eternal staff predictions in terms of top 4. So the fan vote, real quick. This snapshot was taken last night. So Lights Out Ace, AngryChicken, Unearthly, and Camato were the 4 leaders, although Kampf, Locopojo, and Sir Rhino were kind of the next slight tier down in terms of trickle down of votes. And then we look down to Hythar, Moosh, Sunnyvale, Child Roland, Ilya, Love Up, Tobo, Sarius, and Toth leading up the end of the bracket. Again, I think I touched on this point a little bit yesterday. I think recency bias has a little bit of a too much of an effect on people's votes. I don't think Toth is only deserving of 1% of the vote. Lights Out Ace obviously gets the popular streamer bump, as well as an AngryChicken gets the
big Combre vote, basically.
the constantly showing up in the top of tournaments.
Is AngryChicken vote.
Yes. AngryChicken, as much as you can say any one of these people is more deserving than any of the rest, I think AngryChicken, if you had to pick going into the tournament, may have been a lot of people's favorites. He has definitely shown the most consistent performance in invitationals out of all of our players.
Now, if I know Lights Out Ace, he's been shamelessly promoting himself on stream as well as everywhere else in order to get these kinds of fan vote numbers. So that's not a huge surprise for me to see him at the top.
Promoting
Unearthly
himself on
and Chicken.
Twitch.tv. Never mind.
Yeah.
Your one-stop shop, etc., etc.
Yeah.
We've all heard the spiel. Chicken and Unearthly and Camato are sort of the generally accepted great players right now. I know Kamato's been a rising star over the last 2 seasons. A lot of people have been looking to him ever since he won those 2 weekly tournaments. Everybody sort of said, "Hey, it's the new Unearthly." And considering that Unearthly's on mid-range now, maybe it is the new Unearthly.
Yeah, winning 2 weeklies over the span of 3 weeks, the Unearthly special, has become the Camato special.
Well, no one else except for Unearthly has ever won 3 weeklies total before. So Camato is our second most winning player in the Eternal Tournament series, even though he's only played seriously for 2 seasons, compared to Unearthly's 6.
To be fair, Unearthly does have 5 weekly wins compared to
6.
6. Sorry, fair enough.
Mhm.
6 weekly wins compared to Kamato's 3, but yeah,
Yeah, give it 4 seasons.
which is pretty nuts.
Yeah.
But we don't need to gush about Unearthly. We can do that potentially on day 2 if he makes it. So let's move on to predictions, where I did not gush about Unearthly.
Yeah. So, I will give a quick caveat at the start of this. This is not a Swiss. This is a round robin. So players are not playing people at their same record. They're just kind of working their way through everyone. So people have not, so comparing records directly is a little unfair in terms of, if Sunnyvale has had all of his easy matchups, he may drop from, top of the bracket down to bottom. If Loco Pojo has had all of his hard matchups, he may rise from the bottom of the bracket.
Rex been holding on to that since Loco Pojo's 03 start.
to be completely fair, Pojo did face, I believe, his 4 hardest matchups at the start of the day yesterday. It made me sad to see him down at the bottom of the bracket. I was very excited about his deck.
So really, he's 3-2, and we can discard 5 results. Is what you're saying.
Oh yeah.
but so while being 7-2 going into day 2 is where you want to be, we will talk in a little bit about what the players are facing next.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, as we've been talking about, our actual top 4 are Sunnyvale and Camato tied for first because they have the head-to-head win against Tobo. Tobo barely behind in third, and Sir Rhino, the sole person at 6-3, making the tiebreaker math very easy. So aReNGee is, in one way, doing the best out of these predictions. He's predicted 2 people so far in the top 4. But then he also has the numbers in brackets are the sum total of match wins for people's predictions. But he's also slightly trailing Teehee in terms of that metric.
Yeah, Hythar did not have a strong day 1. I'm confident that, like Sir Rhino, he will rally, but things were looking very rough for me at around round 4 with both Sir Rhino and Hythar down in the dumps. But Sir Rhino did rally, and I'm sure that Hythar will too on day 2. So I feel pretty confident.
You can't play rally in Dark Combre, so
Wow.
ExKirby, professional comedian.
He'll stand together. That's what he'll do.
There you go.
I'll allow it.
So since we're reading out each other's, Rek has successfully predicted the 5-4 portion of the bracket, sticking to players who are doing slightly above average and giving him a slightly above average score of 20, which is not the best over the direct aReNGee Eternal people. Where's Kirby? Yeah. So the lowest of the aReNGee Eternals.
It's a tight race.
Yeah, he successfully picked Camato, and then is also demonstrating his mastery of the 5-4 portion of the bracket. So basically the same as Rek, but with the 1-7-2 pick, he's in the lead with 22. And it's interesting that his picks almost completely mirror the fan votes in terms of success, with just Unearthly for Child Roland swapped out. So the fan vote is doing pretty well, although the person who's currently in first in that is in fourth of the fan vote, which is kind of interesting.
Mm.
Kirby,
I have to say, I like the fact that we bring in two people for analysis and commentary, and they get 19 and 16 on the pick'ems, basically.
Yes, well, these are SPG imports, so take what they say with a grain of salt.
Yeah, Brady Kin only got 19, and he got Turbo on his picks, but unfortunately, Haidar is kind of dragging his results down. Same with Paradox, except he also has Loco Pojo weighing his results down. And I'm just sat here on 21 like, yeah, this is fine.
So all this team camaraderie is bringing people down.
Yeah. So what we've learned today is don't support your teammates. They're bad. They will let you down several times.
Well, I mean, I've supported Sir Rhino, and he's doing quite well. So I'm not unhappy with that.
Oh, just give it another 6 rounds.
Kirby predicts Sir Rhino 06 on the day.
Rhino, I'm sorry for cursing you, but it had to be done.
Had to be done.
Rhino going from the 6-3 bracket into the 6-9 bracket may be a bit of an upset prediction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he went 6-0 yesterday, so he's due.
I will say that going into round 4, when we first featured Rhino on stream, I believe, or maybe it was a little bit later, but he was definitely at the not doing so well portion of the bracket. He was going into his matchup against TJP. I messaged him asking him, about the being featured, and he was like, "Yeah, you're gonna need a backup match. The matchup versus TJP is the worst matchup in the field for Xenon Control," and then he managed a 2-0 win. So Rhino's mental game was maybe a little shaky for a second there, but yeah, he rallied, and I don't predict he'll go 0-6 today. He does have 2 TJP decks to face still.
Well, we can look at the strength of the field with that perfect segue, or as I would refer to it as, put up the squiggles.
I will be honest and say that I wanted to put this graphic on stream and then figured out what I was going to talk about it after the fact. I think this Buckwheat started updating this live in Discord yesterday. He had posted the updated version of it in the tournament chat channel on the Eternal Discord after every round. And I think it's actually really cool. I mean, it's something that you can kind of glean just by looking at Challenge. But this is a kind of a way to analyze how players have been doing based on what they faced. So you take a look at the player at the top and you follow their column down. And so if, for example, AngryChicken, he won against Unearthly 2-1. He lost versus Comcroat 0-2, et cetera, as you continue down. And as the bracket worked out neatly, the 4 TJP players are clumped together in the middle portion of the bracket, making it a little easier to see, like, okay, who hasn't faced off against the TJP decks? And then we can also see that 3 of the 4 Fire Aggro players ended up grouped together on the bracket, with Comp sitting off on his own in a separate portion of the bracket. It makes it a little harder to analyze that. Loco Pojo is also an aggro deck, but he's not really the same style of aggro deck as the Fire Aggro decks. He has a bit different of a matchup profile. And while the different flavors of Burn have different matchup profiles as well, they're a bit more similar comparing them to Loco's deck. So one of the things I noticed is, well, okay, AngryChicken's deck name is kind of a, aggro is dead. Aggro doesn't exist as his for fun name for the deck as he submitted it. So okay, he's 5-4. He's not doing great. He played against burn decks. That was the deck that was going to punish, a deck like Vodacombo. And then it's like, wait, he actually hasn't played against 3 of the 5 people on burn or on aggro decks. He has played against Loco Pojo. He lost that match. He has played against Comp. He lost that match. But he also went a grand total of 1-2 against TJP, and he's got one more TJP match to go up against. And I think TJP should have been a deck that he was prepared for. I don't think anyone would be surprised to have found out that there was going to be a handful of TJP decks at this event after how well it did at the Season 6 Invitational.
Well, I mean, TJP can basically become combo aggro by playing like 2 Seraphs. And then it's aggro deck, so the Vodacombo loses.
This is true. I just kind of wonder if something went wrong in terms of AngryChicken's plan for TJP, if testing didn't go quite as well as it should have for him.
Well, I looked at his deck list earlier. Correct me if I'm wrong, there's no combo healers anywhere near that deck. I think that's the main issue I have with it in its matchup. Combo healer is just such a good blocker versus most decks, to be fair. But like having the ability to short damage is pretty important before you can get your Voders and Ascendants down.
Yeah, his curve on the early defensive creatures is, well, Voice of the Speaker can technically block Grunted drones, and he only has 2 Seraphs, and indeed he has no combo healers in the 90.
Yeah, he's just gonna get run over without combo healers, and apparently he has been getting run over with them without them even.
So I'm an AngryChicken believer. AngryChicken has done some very clever things with deck building before, but until AngryChicken wins the tournament and proves me wrong, I have to say I think that this deck is a little bit metagamed too deep in terms of matchups for a round robin. Maybe if this was a Swiss or a bracketed tournament where he could be sure of only facing, maybe one aggro deck, but the fact that he's got to face all of them means that having only 2 cards, I guess he has 9 cards that he can play that cost less than 4 power that can block. Seems a little bit sketchy to me. Not having any Cambrai healers, not having any Temple Scribes is the true question mark for me.
He's not playing Temple Scribe.
He's playing Power Stone over Temple Scribe.
I'm done. I'm done.
Which is a different choice. It's certainly a very high-end deck, but I wonder if he, metagamed himself a little bit too high curve and didn't leave himself any room to maneuver with his sideboard.
Yeah, his anti-aggro sideboard is probably, bring in the extra 2 Seraphs, bring in Valkyrie Enforcers, bring in Reality Wardens. And while those cards are very good at some portions of aggro, like, you don't want to bring in Reality Warden against Rally. Like, Reality Warden is a brick wall for, like, bigger burn. Like, Comp's Croat style deck has problems with the Reality Warden.
Bring in Decay to snipe those 2 ornate katanas in Comp's list.
Dude, that life gain is relevant.
Yeah, there you go.
We saw, I think, in actually the Season 3 Invitational, I think it was like 3-14 Seraph, gave Sarius, like, nightmares. Like, I think he still probably wakes up seeing, like, that Seraph and wakes up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night. And Reality Warden started showing up for similar reasons. It can't be annihilated. Burn doesn't want to run Deathstrike. Deathstrike is a 4-cost clunky card. It doesn't fit into your curve. You can't hold it up. You can't do anything with it aside from dedicate a turn to, and this turn I am playing Death Strike to kill that unit. But Rally's just like, oh, you're playing a 5-drop? Well, you're dead before you can play it. And that's kind of, that's Ilya's deck, and that's kind of what Sunny's plan is going to be as well. Against a deck trying to play a Reality Warden as its defensive unit.
Yeah, it's not an ideal position to be in. I do think he has not left himself good options against aggro, and against the more aggressively tilted TJP lists, or these lists that can tilt themselves aggressively, then he's going to have troubles as well.
And so, sorry, aReNGee, if you, go ahead.
It's a little bit weird because even though this deck is so high curve, it's playing a lot of air. You've got,
well, that's the Vodacombo problem.
4 Seek Powers, 3 Find the Way, 4 Power Stone, 3 Voice of the Speaker. These cards don't really do anything. Like, Protect can, but it doesn't do anything against units, so it can be a dead card situationally. Voice of the Speaker and Power Stone, I don't think are what you want, and that's 7 slots that could be used to shore up your other matchups. Like, not playing 4 copies of Seraph main deck is probably,
I'll agree with you on the Power Stone. Voice of the Speaker is a really good card, though. Like, I completely agree with the inclusion of Voice. It is ridiculously good. It just makes your power drop so much more consistent. It's not even funny.
It definitely allows you to conserve Seek Powers or Find the Way for once you have played your Vodacombo.
Yeah,
and which is a problem the deck can have. You get to 7 power, you play your Vodacombo, and then you're just like, well, I hope the top of my deck is power, so I can start doing my Vodacombo things.
Or the more annoying one where you're stuck with Mystic Ascendants, Vodas, and Ninethorns in your hand, and you just need to get up there to be able to play them. Getting a Voice of the Speaker on tables just makes that so much easier.
I just think with everything else, it stretches it too much on the combo, and it seems like the combo's not been able to come together too much today.
Oh, I agree, but
and
it's not because of the Voice of the Speaker.
Yeah, well, it kind of turns the deck from AngryChickens, big Combre, I got all these good cards, watch me sequence them well and beat you, into, well, I hope my combo comes together. And I'm not sure a player as good as AngryChicken wants to rely on that kind of coin flip.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. Big Combre is, at the very least, against the decks that it's suited against, is one of the more skill-intensive decks in the game. Of course, it can get run over by Rally or or Chalice can just go over the top of it without the Combre player really having much in the way of play for those games. But against the rest of the 80% of the field in the middle, Chalice has a lot of sequencing decisions, a lot of like, should I hold this power? Should I play this power? Should I, try to get up to the 3rd Parliament Owl? Or do I want to hold this power in case I draw a Mystic Ascendant? Things like that. And AngryChicken has proven to be probably one of the best, if not the best, players at making those decisions correctly. And that's where his strength shows. Whereas Vodacombo, I guess it's a bit too reliant on drawing, Mystic plus Voda or Voice plus Voda, Marshall plus Voda, Marshall plus Mystic. And if you don't manage to put some of these combo pieces together, your deck kind of falls apart.
Such is the risk of playing Vodacombo. I guess, to be fair, the only really major change I would make is just find the ways out of the deck and get Combre healers right in there. But I don't hate the deck beyond that. It's greedy, but it's not excessively greedy. It's just the Power Stones make your life so much harder than it needs to be, I think.
Yeah, we're really not saying that there's anything wrong with his deck per se. It just probably wasn't the right meta call, unfortunately.
Yeah,
so a little bit too inbred.
Another player who has actually yet to play against the aggro portion of the bracket is Unearthly. And I think that might be... So, Argenport Midrange used to do fairly well against mid-range aggro styles, but then we kind of lose to Rally. But now it doesn't have the Bartholo plus Lifesteal race plan quite as strong. Of course, while Unearthly is not running Bartholo in his 75, he is still running 4 Bloodletter. He has Instigators, Tinker Overseers to curve, 2 drop into Bloodletter. But he's also not running Lethrai Falchion, which is kind of the Bloodletter 5 through 7, as it usually ended up being. Usually the deck wasn't running the full 8 lifesteal weapons. It would trim 1 Falchion because it's the clunkier of the 2. But he is running cards like Finest Hour and Protect in the main, which have kind of taken the Bartholo slot. The deck seems to have filled in the Bartholo slot with a bit more utility. And the Finest Hours may help shore up the anti-aggro matchup.
So, Unearthly doesn't want to hear me say this, and he won't agree with me, but this is definitely last month's deck. The nerfs have pulled a lot of power from Argenport Midrange, and I don't think that this deck is optimally positioned. It went from being the top midrange deck to probably being one of the lower ones, losing a lot of the free win potential of
Put a Falchion on the bot.
Its Falchion Racing, since it gave it another angle of attack rather than its relatively fair one. Now we've got this kind of hybrid weapons / removal deck where you've got, you got 24 units, you got 4 Bloodletters, and you got some removal, and that needs to turn into a dead opponent. Deck does not have any reach. It does have Slay, which is a broken card, as we know, but Tavrod isn't quite as threatening here as when he had, I think, 12 to 16 targets. Now he's only got 8. No, he also has other Tavrods, so 11.
He is also running Auric Interrogator, which was not always run. So he can hit the Interrogators.
Mm-hmm.
He can hit the Bloodletters.
But it's definitely not as threatening as when you could just slam a 9/1 Falchion on a Portolo, right, and then go to town here. So the deck's still fine. It feels like it's a step behind, and it hasn't been performing too well so far. He has rallied from an initial weak start, or protected, or whatever particular joke you want to make for this list. But there's definitely a couple of question marks there. He is playing a bunch of Emerald Monuments, which help a bit with the flood problem and give Tavrod a few more hits. So I do think that this is a fairly well-built deck. I'm just not sure that this is where you wanted to be for this tournament.
I do think he has made some very interesting decisions with his deck. Paladin Oathbook was not a common card in Argenport Midrange. Ilya, actually, before Tales of Horus Trevor released, experimented with an Argenport aggro list.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Unearthly's list now is maybe the straddling that line. You don't really want 4 or 5 drops in your aggro deck, but you also don't really want Paladin Oathbook in your mid-range deck. Although I think Paladin Oathbook is actually a very good call as a sideboard tech card for this event. This is a very removal-heavy field, and Oathbook is the weapon that keeps on weaponing, as it were. He kind of invented that tech for Rakano against Chalice, where Chalice, of course, if you're putting a hammer or a plate on a unit, even back in set 1, all right, well, Wasp. Well, okay, you torch the Wasp out of the way, but they fogged you for a turn. Then they vanquish it. Now you just got 2 for 1. Well, and then they would kind of, 1 for 1 or 2 for 1 you into oblivion, but Paladin Oathbook let you effectively get weapons, and it can do the same in this deck. So I really like that call. I do like the Bards being in the sideboard. A lot of people might have just been like, all right, this card is dead. Turn them into dust, never look at it again. But I think it actually is the right call to have in a sideboard.
You first.
I think I was going to say the same thing that, well, Kirby was, but in a snappier way. So moving the Barts to the sideboard is a good first step, but if we took it a step further and moved them to the collection, or better yet, as you suggested, the shift stone bin, I think we could really free up some sideboard slots there and move on.
No, I was going to say. I was going to say, this is going to sound completely ridiculous. I think we can agree there's like a good number of mid-range decks in this field. How stupid would it have been to put the Bart's main board and just try and, okay, this Bart costs 4 now, but I can still put a weapon on a Bart and dome you for $1 billion. Your interaction isn't quite as good as it might be on a Bart. I'm going to just win with this Bart anyway?
He would have needed a lot more weapons main deck.
Oh yeah, I agree with that, but
I don't think Bart in the main deck is the right call. I think the field is too removal heavy. And yeah, sure, Bart is resilient to removal, but once you put a weapon on him, if you burn 2 removal spells on the Bart, it's no, you no longer get the advantage of, Aegis forcing your opponent to 2-for-1 themselves.
Mm.
The problem is he's turned slower, and that means that he doesn't curve as well into any of the weapons that you can really play in Argenport. If you could go Bard into plate, that would be pretty sweet, but it's not something that comes together in 2-color play.
Right.
So just the amount that he's been slowed down means that his racing potential is a lot less, and that's really what Bart was there for. It's a racing card.
What I'm thinking is, like, in the mid-range mirror, you can semi-frequently just get into a board stall without your best board stall breaker is Bart. Like,
Argenport doesn't really board stall because they have
so much.
We look at Unearthly's list. He's running 4 Annihilate, 4 Slay.
Like, sometimes you just get forced into it, and I'm just thinking, like, it would be nice just to be able to reliably go, okay, this is a board stall, I'm just going to win anyway. It's just a thought. It's probably bad.
And that's probably why they're in the sideboard for those sorts of situations. Yeah. But main deck, too slow.
It is risky,
probably.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I really think Unearthly's use of flyers in the deck give him a better way to get around board stalls in the main deck than playing Bart.
Yeah, that's fair.
He's running 12 flyers.
I guess without running Bart, then he's got the Tinker in there.
Yeah, Forces have come in.
It's evasiveness, but not quite as evasive as Bart, so I guess it does the same job.
Right, yeah, he has 8 cards that deal with Sandstorm Titan. So he's not gonna get grounded and then forced into a board stall that way.
Yeah.
Not in the same way that it often happens, but speaking of Tavrod decks, let's go look at the other deck that's playing Tavrod, since I think we only have 2 in the tournament. Is that correct?
That would be Kamato's FJS Midrange / control, as I kind of joked yesterday, / removal pile. But once again, I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, he's just running like 20 removal spells plus weapons. This deck isn't really armory in that it's only running 4 rune hammers. It doesn't have artisans. It doesn't have throne wardens. It doesn't even have die shows.
Camato admitted that rune hammer is his favorite card, and he will play it in every justice deck. 4 in the main.
I can't blame him.
What the rest of the deck is doing. So this isn't so much armory as it is just straight mid range with 4 rune hammers in the main because it's Camato. So,
I don't even know if I'd call it directly mid-range in that it's slightly more mid-range than the version he played to earn his berth into Worlds, playing the tiebreaker against Lunex last weekend. But that version, the cheapest unit in the deck was Tavrod. Or no, sorry, it was actually Statuary Maiden. It curved Statuary Maiden into Tavrod into Ikaria as its unit curve. And this at least has 4 Valkyrie Enforcers.
It's the same here, but it's pretending not to be with those Valks, yeah. The plan here is basically kill all your opponent's stuff forever, and then play a Tavrod, break out the removal, and then play Ikaria, because they ran out of removal from killing Tavrod.
Exactly.
How much does Tavrod actually do in this list beyond being a 5/7 endurance?
It draws a Slay.
Yeah, it is a 5/7 endurance in this list. It's a 5/7 endurance that sometimes draws you 2 justice sigils when it swings.
By discarding privilege of rank.
Yeah.
Exactly. This list is not meant for Tavrod to have a lot of hits. The most it can have is if you play Tavrod on curve, you have not drawn any of your other you haven't drawn any of your other Tavrods, you haven't drawn any of your hammers. You're gonna have like a 7 out of 60, 65-ish. Not very good odds to hit.
Yeah,
But
I don't know.
It's a 5/7 endurance beater.
Are there I don't know. To be fair, yeah, I don't know if there are better cards to put in that slot. Like 5 mana 5/7 endurance is pretty good, so I'll give it a pass.
Yeah,
but it's definitely an interesting list that speaks a lot about the field in terms of how well it's done here. It's only playing 14 units total, and it's not like it's got spells that are going to win at the game. Like, you're not going to torch face 3 times, so it needs to stick a single threat and push through, and that's a strategy that a lot of players have been using effectively at this tournament. Removal is kind of limited with the Time Justice Primal decks. They're playing sort of defensively go wide strategies. Harsh Rule's well positioned, so having 4 of those in the main and just having a lot of removal is pretty good when everybody else is trying to stick single threats. There's a lot of protect going back and forth between players.
Oh, there's no protect in Kamato's list. There's in the sideboard, okay.
Sideboards, yeah.
Yeah.
But like we saw, Chicken's list has 4 protect main deck, that's a lot of main deck protects.
Yeah.
And Unearthly's list has sideboard protects, I believe, and a lot of the other Justice. Hythar's list, so a lot of the Justice decks are playing straight up protect, and then all the Combre ones have actual stand togethers as well. So
I mean, it's 1 mana counter spell. I think you have to play it.
Yeah,
it's just good.
So
real quick,
certainly a deck.
Sorry, go ahead.
Just certainly a deck that speaks a lot about the metagame when you see that it's going well, because there's a lot of metagames where this sort of style would flop. Just 4 threats, too low density. A lot of them not real threats, like Vulcan Forcer isn't going to win you a game. Statuary Maiden might, that's a good card, but Tavrod without support, that's just going to die to a Vanquish or something. So it's really the Icarias and the Maidens that this deck is leaning on.
Yeah, I did want to point out the 2 losses that Camato did rack up yesterday were actually to Hythar and Toth, playing kind of bigger time mid-range decks. They're really kind of the only 2 players playing like real time mid-rangey mid-range.
Yeah.
If we're gonna call TJP mid-range more of like an aggro bent mid-range. Toth is on a Praxis list, and Hythar is on Dark Combre. And Toth's Praxis list isn't like super big. It's not running Mystic Ascendant, but it is on 3 Predatory Carnosaur in the main. Which is a little higher curve than usual.
That also does deal very neatly with this deck. Like, Ikari is a 5/5 Aegis. Don't care. I have Killer.
Right. Yeah, Toth's list actually has a lot of things that get in the way of Ikari. He's running 4 Crimson Firemaw, which is a 4-drop that Ikaria can't attack into profitably. She trades up in theory in terms of value that you get 5 War Cries, but you really don't want to trade a 7-drop for a 4-drop.
No. Especially when that 4-drop's probably made several cards free at that point, so you've already got value.
Right.
It's kind of weird to me that I feel confused as to not seeing Mystic Ascendant in these big time lists. It just feels like it's been such a standby of all the time lists that we've seen recently. But Carnosaur plus Obelisk is a lot better with the Dawnwalkers, gives you a removal spell that usually sticks around, and is really good at pushing home that that dual advantage that Praxis loves to do. You wouldn't think of it as much of an advantage deck, but a lot of its cards do double duty. Shatterglass Mage, Heart of the Vault, obviously, and Predatory Carnosaur all sort of bringing that up with the Dawnwalker. A card that
Praxis,
we don't use. Sorry.
Well, yeah, Praxis grinds value in a different way than Big Combre, Mystic Ascendant, Iron Thorn plus Ascendant, draw 8 billion cards every time you play a power. They grind via getting efficient unit 2-for-1s with Shatterglass Mage and Heart of the Vault, getting somewhere between like a 2-for-1 and a 4-for-1, depending on how the deck feels that day.
I mean, I think the main problem with Mystic Ascendant, especially in that kind of list where your curve stops there and you don't have access to 1-mana counterspell, it dies to Vanquish. So why are you not just playing Heart of the Vault?
Right. We have seen Mystic Ascendant in big Praxis. It should, at the very worst, cantrip in terms of, Mystic Ascendant doesn't really cost 6, it costs 7 because you play a power afterwards.
But like at that point, why you just not playing Heart of the Vault, especially when you're in Praxis, so the influence requirements aren't really that bad.
Well, you say that, but
I mean they're bad, but compared to
Mystic
3
Ascendant-
F3 piles that run it.
Mystic Ascendant having a single influence symbol compared to Heart of the Vault 6 is a cost, but I agree, Heart of the Vault, when you are in Praxis, is maybe a little bit better than Mystic Ascendant, unless you have 4 hearts and you want more of that effect.
Well, yeah.
So, taking a look at this list, there's a couple of differences from some of the traditional ladder lists that we've seen, and one of those is there's no ramp here. There's no Initiates of the Sands, there's no Power Stones, and I know Power Stone Praxis is something that has come into force a bit. So it's not trying to skip from 2 to 4 anymore, or from 1 to 3, but what we do see is 2 copies of Champion of Impulse in the main deck.
I was testing Praxis with Loco Pojo before the tournament. Champion of Impulse is a really good card, as it turns out. You play it, and maybe it's a 2/2, maybe it's a 4/4, but usually you get an extra power on the swing, and that gets you up to 5, which you can do some really silly things at that point. Like, you could play a Carnosaur return early, maybe 2 turns early, not Carnosaur, Rhinoc. Situationally, it can just swing the game massively in your favour. And at the end of the day, it's only a 3-drop. It does work itself out most of the time.
That's another interesting set of numbers. Only 2 Amber Monument in this list, whereas most Praxis lists start with 4 Amber Monument and never look back.
I guess, if you're not running ramp, then you want more active power than... Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you just, run the 2 Amber Monument, so you're less likely to brick.
He's on...
Yeah, Toth is on 4 Seek, 4 Amber Acolyte. So the 2 Amber Monument does seem a little interesting compared to usual, but he does have 3 Predatory Carnosaur in the main, which is a little bit more than usual. I think 2 was the standard. Mm-hmm. So he does want to hit 6 a little bit more frequently. So I understand the trimming of Amber Monuments a little bit.
Yeah. Plus he can side into an extra Predatory Carnosaur and just go the full 8.
Yeah.
6 drops, which somebody's playing 8 6-drops. I think it's the Xenon lists are.
It probably is the Xenon list.
The Mystic Ascendants and the Champion of Mysteries. That sounds right.
Yeah, they do have Aura Spender, running, so that's a little easier.
Yeah, they're running 4 Champion, 4 Mystic Ascendant.
Not that I want to seek directly into those, though. I do want to point out that Toth is playing a card that we rarely see. And when we do see it, we usually associate it with aggro, and that is 3 copies of Slow in the sideboard.
Slow?
The Thundershot aggro Combre special, I think.
Yeah, I don't hate Slow, to be fair. It does give you a lot of information about your opponent. It literally just reveals the opponent's hand bar power. So you do get some good information, you get to know what to play around, and if your opponent's holding an expensive card in their hand, you can make it basically unplayable. So that's pretty neat.
But that's sort of a tempo play, because it's strictly card disadvantage. It doesn't discard their opponent's card.
You're not playing it for card advantage. You're playing it to play around something, or just hopefully make a card unplayable. As a tempo play, it's completely unviable. But as a card, it's not terrible.
So, yeah, Praxis Midrange isn't usually a deck that can take advantage of that kind of tempo swing. So was this just the crappy version of, Sabotage that Praxis is forced to play into due to its colors, and it's just, trying to pick off harsh rules before they come down? Praxis doesn't have access to Protect and Sabotage and other better answers like
that. Because this is the only, handed... Oh, no, there is the Slow on a Stick that you can play as well, but I don't think
that costs 5 and it's a 3/4.
Yeah, I don't think you want to run that. I think if you want to interact with your opponent's hand, you have to play Slow in Praxis.
I have run into that card on ladder, and it has done work against me, but I believe that is the outlier more than the average result. But on that note, we are going to be wrapping up the pre-show analysis very quickly. But Kirby, aReNGee, do you have any final comments?
Yes. Sometime next week, I'm going to do an hour-long interview with Ilya.
May God have mercy on our souls. aReNGee, anything you want to say?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be sticking around today. I'm very excited to see who comes out of the round robin. There's still 6 more rounds to play, and I look forward to all the exciting tiebreak scenarios that we need to handle
That you
when
need
they
to
come
handle.
up. Yes, that I need to handle, as I have. I've yet to encounter one that bested me until World's Wildcard. So we're coming off a bit of a low one, so I'm hoping that doesn't happen today. But thanks for having us on the pre-show, Rek. Good luck with the tournament. And yeah.
And so I know I apologize for your incoming 06.
Ooh,
the jinx. All right. Well, once again, thank you both for joining me on the pre-show today. We will be taking a very, very quick break before we come back to you with tournament coverage. We'll be starting with basically who's going to be the leader of the bracket matchup. It's going to be Sir Rhino versus Sunnyvale, the matchup with the highest number of combined match wins between the two players. Once again, Sunny at 7-2, Rhino at 6-3. If Sunny wins, he'll be leading the bracket because of tiebreakers, no matter how Tobo or Kamato's matches break out. But if Rhino wins, he's going to bring himself up to 7-3, which is going to be at the very least, within one win of topping the bracket. And so our casters today will be Mark, aka Chibi Kawaii, and Neon's return to the actual casting booth. Neon won't actually be able to join us for the entire day. Bearders will be swapping in for him somewhere around 3 p.m. Eastern, so in about 4 hours. So we look forward to that, and we look forward to starting this tournament. So have a good afternoon, and hope you all enjoy the matches.